This episode of the Tavern Chat Podcast is brought to you by Frog God Games' own Orcus on 34th level, available exclusively on Indiegogo. Whether you play Swords and Wizardry 5th edition or the now resilient and out of print but still well supported Pathfinder 1E, Orcus is waiting for your intrepid party of adventurers. Go to, now folks, this part's the important part, tenkars-tavern.games /Orcus, Orcus, and pick up your copy. Your party will curse you. Thank you. Hello, and welcome to the Tavern Chat Podcast. I'm your host, Eric Tenkar, your bartender in the OSR, your main proprietor at the Tenkars Tavern blog, Discord server, MeWe group, Facebook group, Twittering, Instagram, youtube.com /Eric Tenkar. And then we had a mailing list too. If you go to tenkars-tavern.games, you can join the mailing list. It goes out Sundays. So, we are going to keep the AD&D 1E theme going because as I look through my player's handbook, when those initial spells end, the spell list ends, you get basically the notes, which I find interesting because these are things that we glossed over in a large part when we were teens, when I was playing in the 80s. Light. As long as you had, in theory, right, with one character that isn't demi-human, all the demi-humans, except some of the halflings, had infravision. But all you needed was one not to have infravision, need light, and basically infravision was not going to work. We forget that, right? The light source disrupts infravision. Now, there's a chart here for radius of illumination, which be honest with you, we always figured torches were the low end, lanterns were a high end, shed more light, and magic swords were the bomb because they glowed and you didn't need to carry a torch anymore. Well, here's the deal. Here's the kicker, which I don't remember, but I do find interesting. Torches have a 40-foot radius of illumination. Lanterns, a 30-foot. So a torch actually shines better light than a lantern, although a lantern lasts about 4 times as long. A bullseye lantern will cast light out 80 feet, but it is only 10 feet wide, which is now, and this is something that annoys me about the AD&D rules, because they mix feet and inches between the two all the time. And in this case, they're saying radius of illumination is in feet, not inches. And I guess, all right, that makes sense, right? Because whether you're indoors or outdoors, it shouldn't make a difference. So then why is the illumination width an inch wide, which an inch in AD&D is 10 feet, unless you're outside, in which case it is 10 yards. Yeah, I know. Gets me too. Magic swords, though, only shed light in a 20-foot radius. That's half the radius of a torch. A dagger, merely 10 feet. Things that we overlooked back then. I mean, you make assumptions and you go with it, and it becomes part of the default rules in your mind and your gameplay. But reality is, AD&D rules were meant to be The one set of rules to rule them all, the one set of rules that were common between all, not house ruled. And we inadvertently house ruled them because there were so many fucking rules to learn. There's a section here. Traps, tricks, and encounters. Now, traps are aimed at confining, channeling, injuring, or killing characters. Okay. That's right. And encounters. Encounters are what we think they are. It's a monster or a crazed dwarf or kindly wizard, or these are all, quote, monsters, right? But what are tricks? We never called the tricks those sloping fucking corridors. We just called them a fucking annoyance. Those magical teleporters that when you reach the middle of a corridor and suddenly you are transported elsewhere. All these little tricks to fuck up your mapping, right? Now, one of the first things we did after a year or so of play was took the mapping away from the players and gave it to the GM. Why? When we did that, because I was the GM and my players can never understand my fucking rule descriptions. Not saying it's my fault. Maybe my players were dumb as shit, but likely it was my fault. So it's just better off that I just did a general sketch and then often did it without graph paper. You don't need graph paper to show the approximate dimensions. We did not use a battle grid. We didn't use a table to put our miniature. We used miniatures to show marching order, if at all. A lot of times it was a scrap piece of paper or dice. Because marching order is what mattered, right? Because marching order is when you get surprised or when you chance upon an encounter, who is where. That's important. So I find some of these notes here to be interesting, but the part that I'm going to have to read out loud, this is what I find. I don't think this would play very well, go over very well with today's generation. Obedience. Name of the section here. You can go to your player's handbook, page 106. Obedience. This aspect of play has three facets. The leader and caller of a party might order one course of action while various players say to their characters do otherwise. Your DM will treat such situations as confused and muddled, being certain to penalize the group accordingly. Obedience also applies to hirelings and henchmen. Loyalty and morale are factors here, as is the existing situation where obedience is called for. Finally, certain magic items, particularly magic swords, tend to be argumentative and may refuse to obey uncertain, demanding, weak, or foolish masters. If in doubt regarding obedience, the short test is the one where you ask yourself if your character would do it. This test applies only to creatures, not magically endowed items. If you ask a henchman to try on a cloak, it is probable that he and all of your henchmen and hirelings will expect that the garment become his. And that is true. I wouldn't call the section obedience because the connotations are... What was that, Rach?
No, I was looking at a video.
Oh. I thought Rach was commenting on the use of the word obedience. It's okay. Likewise, if a servitor is asked to sample the contents of a potion bottle, the item is then regarded as the servitor's property by all onlookers. Obedience is based on such considerations. Example, fairness, justness, rewards, hazards, love, respect, fear, and similar repute and emotions. I think you could just refer to it as common sense, right? I mean, the connotations in today's society of using that word obedience. I don't think that we even to love and obey, I think, is no longer part of most marriage vows, right? Because yes, I'm there to love, but obey? I don't know about that. Yeah, all right, maybe I do, but that'll be our secret, folks. We are in the midst of a pandemic. Please, please, use your common sense. Take actions that protect your health, those of your loved ones, your family, your friends, your community. Be safe, be well. God bless. Roll those dice. And, God willing, I will be back with you all again tomorrow. Wednesday, talking crit with Bad Mike and, I believe, Bill Barsh. I am saying it out loud. You can quote me. I could be fucking wrong. I often am. All right. Laters.